Einstein. They stole his brain to find his genius. Albert Einstein begged to be cremated and forgotten, so no one could ever turn him into a relic. Hours after he died, someone stole the one piece of him that would never be allowed to rest. 1955. Albert Einstein dies in Princeton at 76. His body is meant to be cremated within hours, exactly as he wanted. But the pathologist on duty that night, a man named Thomas Harvey, has other plans. During the autopsy, before anyone can stop him, Harvey saws open Einstein's skull and removes the brain, without the family's permission, against everything Einstein had asked for. Harvey isn't a thief for money. He's something stranger. A man convinced that if he can just study this brain, he'll find the physical secret of genius and make his name in history. He gets the family's furious, reluctant permission after the fact. Then he divides the brain into more than 200 sections for study. And the brain isn't even the only piece he takes. Einstein's eyes are removed too and handed to the great man's eye doctor, who keeps them for the rest of his life in a safe deposit box in New York City. And then, nothing. For decades, Harvey just keeps it. He loses his job at Princeton. He loses his medical license. 3 marriages fall apart. He drifts from town to town, and everywhere he goes, the brain goes too. Stored in mayonnaise jars in a cider box under a beer cooler in the trunk of his car. He even smuggles it across the border into Canada in 2 cookie jars. In 1997, Harvey is over 80. He puts the jar in the trunk of his Buick and drives across the entire United States to deliver it to Einstein's granddaughter, the brain sloshing in a Tupperware container the whole way. And the punchline to all of it? When researchers finally study the slices, the most famous brain on Earth turns out to be smaller and lighter than average. They spent decades dissecting the most famous brain on Earth to find the secret of his genius. It never gave them one. Lenin, the man who was never allowed to die. For over 100 years, a team of scientists has reported to work every day to care for the body of a man who died in 1924. They have given him glass eyes and artificial eyelashes, and they will do it again next week. January 1924. Vladimir Lenin dies. The plan is an ordinary burial, but the crowds that come to see his body, standing for hours in the Russian winter, are enormous. And the men who inherit his revolution realize the corpse is too powerful to bury, so they make a decision that has no real precedent. They will preserve him forever. A secret laboratory is created for one purpose: to keep Lenin from decaying. The team, known simply as the Mausoleum Group, invents techniques as they go. Every 18 months, the body is lowered into a bath of glycerol and potassium acetate. When his eyelashes are damaged, they replace them with artificial ones. When his eye sockets threaten to collapse, they fit him with glass eyes. They resculpt his nose, patch his skin, and dress him in a custom rubber suit that keeps preserving fluid circulating beneath his clothes. His organs are gone. His brain is removed and sliced apart at a special institute, searching, like Einstein's, for the secret of genius. When the Nazis close in on Moscow in 1941, the corpse is loaded onto a secret train and shipped 2,000 kilometers east to a small town in Siberia, guarded around the clock the entire way. For nearly 4 years, the Great Mausoleum on Red Square stands empty, yet soldiers keep solemnly changing the guard out front, so that no one ever suspects the body is gone. A century later, they're still at it. The Soviet Union that built him collapses in 1991. Lenin remains. In 2016, the modern Russian government quietly approves fresh funding to keep the body looking its best, even though surveys show most Russians would rather bury him. He has now been dead more than 4 times as long as the Soviet Union ever existed. They didn't preserve a man. They built a monument and trapped a corpse inside it, and it still isn't allowed to rest. Haydn, the composer who was buried with 2 skulls. For 145 years, one of the greatest composers in history lay in his grave missing his head. When they finally gave it back, they accidentally gave him a spare. 1809. Joseph Haydn dies in Vienna while the city is under Napoleon's occupation. He's buried quickly, quietly, and that's exactly the problem. Because a friend of his, a man named Joseph Karl Rosenbaum, is obsessed with the trendy new pseudoscience of the day. Phrenology, the belief that the bumps on a skull reveal the mind within. Rosenbaum wants to know where Haydn's genius lives, so he bribes the gravedigger, and just 4 days after the funeral, Haydn's head is stolen out of his own coffin. Sure enough, Rosenbaum examines the skull and declares the bump of music fully developed. He keeps the head in a beautiful custom display box, showing it off to visitors like a trophy. 11 years later, Haydn's patron, Prince Esterhazy, finally arranges to move the composer to a proper tomb. They open the grave and find a body with no head. The prince is furious and suspicion falls instantly on Rosenbaum. But when the police arrive to search his house, his wife climbs into bed, lies down directly on top of the hidden skull, and tells the officer she can't possibly be moved because she is menstruating, and they are too embarrassed to look. Rosenbaum then fobs the prince off with a completely different skull and quietly keeps the real one. It passes from collector to collector for over a century. It isn't until 1954, 145 years after his death, that Haydn's true skull is finally reunited with his body. But by then, no one wants to remove the substitute skull already in the coffin, so they bury both. To this day, Joseph Haydn rests in his tomb with two skulls, only one of which is his. Louis XIV, the king whose heart was eaten at a dinner party. A British clergyman once attended a fancy dinner, was shown the preserved heart of one of the most powerful kings who ever lived, and decided to eat it. 1715. Louis XIV, the Sun King, dies after ruling France for 72 years, the longest reign of any European monarch in history. He's embalmed with the full ceremony ode to a near-divine ruler, and his heart is removed and sealed separately, the way royal hearts often are. But the French Revolution throws the country into chaos, and the royal tombs at Saint-Denis are torn open and looted. Embalmed long before into hard, leathery lumps, several royal hearts simply disappear. Some, the stories say, ground up by painters into a prized brown pigment called mummy brown. Louis XIV's heart escapes the paint pot. Instead, it slips into the underground world of collectors, eventually crossing the Channel to England and into the hands of a nobleman named Lord Harcourt, who keeps it as a curiosity and shows it off to dinner guests. Enter William Buckland. Buckland is a respected English theologian and geologist, the man who first scientifically described a dinosaur. He is also famous for one deeply strange ambition. He is trying to eat his way through the entire animal kingdom. Mice, panthers, crocodiles, hedgehogs. He claims to have worked through them all and tells guests the two most revolting things he has ever tasted are mole and bluebottle fly. So when Lord Harcourt shows off the shriveled, embalmed heart of the Sun King at dinner, Buckland looks at it and reportedly says he has eaten many strange things, but never the heart of a king. And before anyone at the table can stop him, he swallows it whole. The heart is gone. The longest reigning monarch in European history conquered Europe, built Versailles, and called himself the state itself. And his heart ended its journey as a party snack. Chopin, the heart smuggled home under a cloak. When the greatest composer Poland ever produced was dying, he made one desperate request because he was terrified of one specific thing, and honoring it meant smuggling a piece of him across a border hidden under a coat. 1849, Paris. Frédéric Chopin is dying at 39 and he carries a particular dread, taphophobia, the fear of being buried alive. His last recorded words are a blunt plea, "Cut me open so I won't be buried alive." He begs that his heart be taken out so there can be no doubt he is truly gone. His doctor removes the heart and seals it in a jar of alcohol, almost certainly cognac. Chopin's body is buried in Paris, but his heart is meant for home, for Poland, the country he loves and has been exiled from. So his older sister Ludwika takes the jar, hides it beneath her cloak, and smuggles the heart by carriage across European borders, past officials who might have asked dangerous questions all the way to Warsaw. There it is, sealed inside a pillar of the Holy Cross Church. And that heart becomes a national symbol, which is exactly why its story doesn't end. During World War II, the Nazis, who understand the power Chopin holds over the Polish spirit, seize the heart and even ban his music. After the war, they return it. In 2014, a secret team of experts exhumes the jar at midnight. The 13 people present are sworn to silence. They don't dare open it. Instead, they photograph the heart through the glass, still floating in what is almost certainly cognac, and find it swollen and marked with telltale lesions. After more than a century and a half, that midnight glimpse quietly settles the old argument over what killed him. Complications of tuberculosis. Chopin was afraid of being buried alive. Because of that fear, his heart has now outlived him by nearly 2 centuries, and it never stopped traveling, surviving, or being fought over. Galileo, the heretic whose finger points at heaven. The man the church forced to his knees for saying the earth moves, now has one finger raised, forever, toward the sky he was forbidden to describe, and it sits in a museum, on display, like the relic of a saint. 1642. Galileo dies a convicted heretic. The Inquisition had banned his book and sentenced him to house arrest for life. He's buried without honor, shoved into a small room behind a chapel in Florence's Santa Croce, denied a proper tomb. Then time changes everything. By 1737, almost a century later, Galileo is no longer a disgrace but a hero, and the church allows his remains to be moved to a grand marble tomb inside the basilica. And here's where it turns strange. During that ceremonial transfer, a few of his admirers quietly bring a knife. As if collecting pieces of a saint, they cut 3 fingers, a tooth, and a vertebra from Galileo's corpse. The vertebra goes to the university in Padua where he once taught. The fingers and the tooth are passed from collector to collector, then vanish completely, until they resurface at an auction in 2009, sold without anyone there realizing whose body they had come from. One finger, the middle finger of his right hand, is mounted upright inside a gilded glass egg. Today, that finger sits in the Galileo Museum in Florence, among the very telescopes he once used, the only human fragment in a building full of instruments. It stands erect, pointing straight up, in the same city whose church once made him kneel and swear his own discovery was a lie. The church silenced him for pointing humanity toward the heavens. Now his finger does it forever. Walt Whitman, the brain they dropped on the floor. America's greatest poet donated his brain to science, certain it would help unlock the secret of genius. A lab assistant dropped it on the floor. 1892, Walt Whitman, the author of Leaves of Grass, dies. In his final years, he joins an exclusive club of Philadelphia intellectuals, doctors, scientists, thinkers, who have all made the same morbid pledge. They call themselves the American Anthropometric Society, but everyone knows them as the Brain Club. Each member promises upon death to donate his brain so it can be weighed, measured, and studied, because they believe the brains of great men will prove physically superior. Proof of genius sitting in a jar. It is junk science, a leftover of phrenology already falling out of fashion. But Whitman believes. So when he dies, the pathologist removes his brain to take its place among the preserved minds of the great. It never makes it. According to the account that finally surfaces years later, a careless assistant drops the jar holding Whitman's brain onto the laboratory floor. It shatters. And in the words of the report, not even the pieces are saved. Some historians suspect even that is a cover story, that the brain was ruined by someone far too important to blame, and a nameless assistant was simply handed the fall. The other men of the Brain Club keep their pledge, and their preserved brains still sit in jars in a Philadelphia collection today. Whitman's place among them is empty. There's a strange epilogue. This grisly little episode, widely whispered about, is very likely what inspired the famous scene in the 1931 film Frankenstein, where the hunchbacked assistant drops the jar containing the normal brain and grabs an abnormal one instead. He surrendered his brain to prove the biology of greatness. In the end, it proved only how easily greatness is lost.